What is Brazil? Brazil is a plural country. There's a lot of Brazils inside of Brazil.
Brazil is loud. Brazil is loud and emotional and personal.
Brazil was built mainly by immigrants. In the south, more the German, Italian immigrants. Northeast, more the Africans that mainly come from the slavery. This mixture makes a special culture in Brazil.
A visão do Brasil é mulher bonita, sem dúvida, futebol, Amazônia. E não é só isso, na verdade é um país que tem muitas riquezas, tem um povo extremamente interessante, muito criativo. O brasileiro sente que tende a melhorar.
I don't think you can claim to present a country in a summer festival. But I think what you can do is put together a mosaic. The aim of Festival Brazil is to do something which at first glance will feel like a great festa of fun and pleasure. Everything you'd expect, the highlights of music, dance, literature and visual arts, but underneath that, underpinning it, there is some very, very serious, demanding content around what is Brazil thinking about, what's its future, and what role does culture play in that story.
We tell stories so they can be read by people. It's important for us that the comics, they are read and seen. And that's when they are done. They are not done when we finish. They are done when they are read and they are with other people. They are holding in their hands. That's when the comics are working. We often compare comics with poetry. With poetry, you have to choose very well the words. In comics, you have space to think about. You have to choose your details. So you have to choose what to show and what to leave out. And what we leave out, hopefully, if it's interesting, will happen in their heads.
I think anyone who comes to the Events and Festival Brazil who has a kind of stereotypical idea of Brazil will probably find that idea challenged.
You have, some artists who are working at the very, very experimental end of contemporary art. And then you have sort of street art, street graffiti, that also has a proper intellectual life there. It's part of graphic culture on the streets.
I think my inspiration in all my work comes when I am in the streets. Because in the streets we have a lot of creative things everywhere. Because sometimes when you don't have money you have to be creative. And also not only to be creative but to have to show yourself different from the other. So it's like a competition of visuals, of engineerings, and this is exciting.
We're really interested in cultural exchange and the idea of world conversations. This is the beginning of a long-term relationship that Southbank Centre will have with Brazilian artists and with communities within Brazil. So that's why we're putting a lot of attention as well in bringing young people over and matching them with young people here. Because we think those relationships could flower, and over a number of years, some very extraordinary things could happen.
Brazil has a lot to show because the people in general are very creative here, And I think now it's the time to show this to Europe.
My work is about touching. A sculptor is somebody who likes to touch. I like to get very close. I like to get very close of the matter, of the structure. All my work is about intimacy of the material.
Over the last 10 years, I think Ernesto has really become one of the leading artists in the world.
We're going to have a piece that's a kind of structure with some wood cut with plywood.
His work really addresses our relationship to space, and it does so in a way that's very immediate and engaging, very sensuous.
Something like that.
There's something about Ernesto's work that affects people very directly, and when people enter one of his installations, their behavior changes.
Life is wild, you know. At some point, you're gonna bump to a jaguar in front of you. You know, there's no way out.
The relationship to space that he engineers isn't just about square walls, 90-degree angles, flat surfaces, but seems to engage us in a much more playful relationship with our surroundings and to fire our imagination.
I hope that people will rethink what they normally had considered Brazilian culture was.
You know, I think all that stuff exists. Cliches usually do turn out to have a reason why they become cliches, but it doesn't tell anything like the whole story.
We couldn't have done this festival at anything like this level of ambition without HSBC. And that's not really just about the money. The money is important, but probably as important is the fact that HSBC have always been very committed to global networks. They've put a lot of time and energy into creating relationships right around the world.
As far as I'm concerned, what I'd like to see the legacy of this partnership as being is a vibrant, fresh expression of the understanding between Britain and Brazil in the context of a world which is globalizing and where Brazil is becoming a more important trading and investment partner, not just of Britain, but of so many other countries in the world as well.